And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston. I am joined by LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. You?
It's just another fine weekend, another great weekend, I should say, in the sports world. For those that don't know, last week, just it didn't work out podcasting, but nonetheless, the World Series has gotten underway. Even more specifically with the ALCS, the Guardians eliminated or not the Guardians, but the Astros. They eliminated the New York Yankees. And that's something I actually wanted to talk about first, LaMarr, because I know that throughout this entire year, the Yankees, they had a season that they haven't had in a while. And in the early part to like the mid part of the season, they were starting to go on a losing streak and all that. And now to go out like that, and it's not even just going out in the ALCS, but it's going out how they did. What are your thoughts on that? And did you actually see that coming?
Yeah, the Yankees they just can't beat the Astros. The Astros got their number. More pitching depth, starting pitching depth, and yeah, pretty much. As I said, they just got their number. Ain't nothing much more to say than that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a real bad look, but I would have at least expected the Yankees to put up a fight because now they're going to face a lot of challenges coming in the offseason. One of them being about Aaron Judge. That's a different topic for a different day, but I do. Hey, you got to admire the Astros and what they were able to accomplish. They I guess they do just have the Yankees number. Maybe that's one of the maybe that's one that just said stuff. But it's just interesting to see how that all turns out. Now to fast forward, and another team that not a lot of people thought that they were going to be there, and that's the Philadelphia Phillies. And overall, how their journey started until now. What are your thoughts on that, LaMarr? And then we're going to get into the first two games of the series.
Yeah, what an amazing turnaround. Philly started out slow, struggling, fired their manager, and picked it up after he got fired and playing good baseball. They got a good team, and I never seen a turnaround like that in baseball, really, where teams turn around like mid-season and makes it to the World Series. Pretty sure it probably happened before, but not that I can recall, though.
Yeah, totally. You know what? To be honest with you, I just guess that shows that anything can truly happen in this game. And I think one of the broadcast teams that started out calling the wild card round, they actually said like the Phillies were probably on the road for close to 2 weeks going on that run when it all happened. And we all know how tough it is to play out on the road, no matter where you're at. But to be what the Phillies did and how they did that, especially with firing their manager early on, as you said, I think that goes to show the resilience level. This team, it's not that it lacks talent because it's very talented. When you got Hoskins and Harper and stuff on the team, you know that there's more than just that they have solid pitching and stuff. I mean, there's a reason that they're in the World Series right now. But I think it really just has to do with them making every at bat count. You've noticed how a lot of them, they could be very patient at first and let the count work its way out before they even attempt to swing at anything. And that's a smart ordeal to actually do right there. It just shows that you're willing to be patient, but I just think it's also they got the clutch hits and the clutch moments. And more often than not, a lot of their hitters that they truly try to count on were the ones that were coming through in the end along with the pitching. And I think whenever you're able to have that, it goes to show a lot because it goes to show that the pitching will bounce the hitting and the hitting will also bounce on into the pitching. And, now through the first two games of the World Series, it's all tied up. Game 3 is tomorrow. And, LaMarr, what are your thoughts on the first two games? And, yeah.
Philadelphia win there snuck game one out, and the Astros came back and won game two. You don't want to go back to Philadelphia down 0-2. So now we got a exciting series going on 1-1. Next few games in Philadelphia. See what happens. It's going to be interesting. It's been a good series so far. Better than I thought.
Oh yeah, I this is one of the reasons why in general I love baseball, but it goes to show that hey, even teams that were least expected to maybe the Astros weren't least expected to be here, but I think somebody hit it on it that they want to do this for Dusty, because I think Dusty for real is walking away and retiring after this season, and that's one thing that they just want to do for him. And, I don't blame them. That's a great ordeal. But overall, I think that this is an evenly matchup, because the Astros and the Phillies both have pitching, and they also have offensive personnel that can really come in clutch or really do what they need to do in order to help the Astros win. But I loved how Philadelphia's resilience showed in the first game, with coming back after the Astros, spurred out to a 5-0 lead. And, how they just didn't let that get to them, even though it was on the road. I think they showed a lot of mental toughness. And, I think at this stage in the season and at this stage in the playoffs, that's what you got to rely on more is the mental toughness and the mental aspect than per se the physical aspect of things, just because that's what you're going to need to rely on more often than not. Sometimes the mental test is the more important than the physical test itself. Now that we've talked about the first two games, because that has it's been a crazy ride in baseball the past two games, but I love it. I love it. This is why I think that the Fall Classic is a very unique one. And, baseball, some of the best moments come at the end of the season and into the playoffs. But a little bit on to college football now, because there were programs that had off this week, and then there were other programs that went ahead and they battled it out in some rivalries. And, two that come to my head right now are Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan State. I'm not sure how much you were able to watch, LaMarr, but I'll just say this, through the past 5 or so games against Ohio State, Penn State has notoriously kept it close. And, it was just another one of those games where they had the ball rolling, but they just couldn't finish it. And, that's where you got to give a team like Ohio State credit with C.J. Stroud. They have a lot of depth, and it's showcased because now that I look back on it, Jackson Smith and Njigma didn't even suit up for the Buckeyes. So, there have been some causes on the concern of the injury front, but overall, they have a well-balanced attack. They have Travion Henderson and company that can run the ball whenever need be, and they can also pass it with a lot of their mobile tight ends and wide receivers. But C.J. Stroud, in and of himself, he is a Heisman Trophy candidate, and I think you see why this team's ranked number 2 in the country. But there have also been some other college football shakeups. Standings wise, and I also want to get into that before we actually get into the Michigan and Michigan State, because that one's got a nice little video to it that we will talk about. But overall, Alabama is now the number 6 team in the country. I know that they're on a bye this week, but describe where I'm getting with this, LaMarr, is how can a loss like that, a Tennessee victory over Alabama at that point in the season, can that really alter momentum for the short term and long term, or do you see Alabama bouncing back from this?
They'll bounce back, probably try to win the rest of their games and still end up in the top 4 somehow. So it always works for Alabama, but it's up to the teams that's in front of them to keep on winning. They can't slip up.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Just looking at the top 4 per se, because I know Ohio State's there, Georgia's there, and stuff. But you know, it's crazy how the college football world has unfolded so far this year. Right now, a lot of people are even upset at like a Penn State because as they lost to Ohio State, they're now 6-2, but they're still 6-2. Just like whatever with their first loss at Michigan. James Franklin said, I want to be clear, we are still a 5-1 team. So, to me, I think Penn State can really win out here, because the only hey, I have all mutual respect for future opponents, but whenever you look at the teams like Indiana and Rutgers, and then you finish it out against Michigan State at home. After you go to Indiana this week, you have I'm not sure who they have. Then I have to look, but I do know that the 12th or so they have Maryland coming to town. So it's not an easy schedule out, but it is you have the capability with the talent that you have to really win out, and hey, 10-2, and I get it, the two losses would come to Michigan and Ohio State, but 10-2 in a potential New Year's Six Bowl, I'd take that on a docket, but no matter what, I would always say we have to move up from this. Like, it seems like this is where we're stuck. We have to, we have to just win in the future and stuff. And, one loss or zero or going undefeated would be better. But overall, hey, it is what it is. It's just time to move on, but it's also time to just finish the season strong. And then I know that with Michigan and Michigan State, there was a little video that surfaced in the locker room. And, I believe that Michigan Stadium is the only stadium where both teams come out of the same tunnel. And, I don't know about you, LaMarr, but I think that's kind of a problem whenever it comes to football specifically, because you got guys that like to chirp a lot, especially whenever they're up or it's a rival. And, I just don't think it's safe to have, two teams in general, unless it's at a neutral site or, just a rivalry game and they both got to come out of the same tunnel. I don't think that that's safe. But what are your thoughts on that? And I was wondering if you actually seen the video.
Yeah, I seen the video. Yeah, it was like 1-on-2 on like one or two on like 30. Yeah, it's not safe when you got both teams going in the same tunnel, and especially after one team just got whooped like that.
Oh yeah. It is not it's not fun. It is not. But I think this draws some light, because I do know that after James Franklin and Penn State were at Michigan, and a video surfaced of some chipping on in the in that tunnel. I think it raises the question that, hey, something serious can really happen, because think about it is Michigan hates Michigan State and Ohio State more than they probably do dislike Penn State. That's probably just a mere fact, because those are two of their biggest rivals. That Michigan State game always means something. That Ohio State game always means something. But I just think that in a lot of instances, they might need to reconstruct the stadium again to where they have two tunnels. It's probably just more safer. It is probably a lot better. And James Franklin's right. You don't want something very serious to happen that probably could have been avoided in the first place. But yesterday, Michigan State loses to Michigan. I know this for a fact. Michigan throughout the season, they have shown how strong their run game is. More and more that I look at it, between how Ohio State is playing, I should say, and how Michigan's playing. I'm really looking forward to the game this year in Columbus and the atmosphere. But overall, can Jim Harbaugh actually make it two in a row? I think he has a solid team to actually attempt it. I think that if there's one team that can take Ohio State down, it would probably be Michigan. But overall, it was fundamental Michigan football. They run a lot, but Blake Corum again showing why He was a highly touted recruit and showing why, the run game is so strong. Him and Donovan Edwards, they just find a way to get through the line, and they find a way to just get those extra yardages. And with the size that Blake Corum is, it's actually doable considering smaller backs can move fast, but they can also maneuver through other things that perhaps say a 6'2 running back cannot. And I think that that's attributing to Michigan's success. You have J.J. McCarthy, but who is leading, I believe, the NCAA in pass completions and whatnot. But besides that, I think it goes to show that Michigan has quality wide receivers. They're utilizing the entire field, and they're utilizing who they have to their advantage whenever it comes to their scheme. And it really works more often than not. And I see why this team is a top 5 team. And, they are showing that Ohio State can be good, but there are other teams that could be good in this division too. So overall, that scrum in the tunnel, that's got to get worked out. But I see why Michigan is where they're at, and it's going to make for an exciting game against Ohio State.
Yeah, it'll be interesting down the stretch. For Penn State, man, they got to tighten up on that defense. I mean, gave up 28 points in the fourth quarter. That's 4 touchdowns.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't help that Sean Clifford threw a couple interceptions and stuff, because those are 3 less possessions you have. And it goes to show, the early mistakes can end up catching up to you later on in the game. And, it's not a knock against Clifford, but, I just think that maybe part of the correctness should be maybe when you throw the ball, sometimes maybe he might throw it a little earlier than anticipated and stuff like that. But, it's a very tough ordeal, but I do know you can play your heart out, and, you can try to get where you want to get. But ultimately, whenever you throw 3 interceptions, you're setting yourself up for 3 less possessions that the defense can do. And I believe Ohio State scored on one, or if not all of those, but I believe that they did score on one of those interceptions. So, but overall, I mean, it's the number 2 team in the country. Turnovers aren't going to get you much in return in favor. If not, they're going to hurt you more. And it's like James Franklin has said in the past, it's a game of turnovers. The team that turns the ball over the least is probably going to be the one that wins in the end. And, they just got to get better, but good news is, they have Michigan and Ohio State out of the way. Now they can focus on Indiana and then soon Maryland and Rutgers and Michigan State and stuff. But all their goals are still in front of them. I think I walk away from the Ohio State game knowing that up until Saturday's game, Ohio State has always covered their spread. Even with the start that they had against Iowa, they still came back and they covered the spread. In this game, they did not. And I think that it goes to show you that, Penn State actually, in a lot of ways, did every team, including Michigan, some favors, because they were able to expose parts of the Ohio State defense that other programs up until this point in the season haven't. And I think it goes to show that a lot of fans are going to look at that and they're going to be like, okay, how can we, maneuver through this? Because I just think it was a great showing overall, but definitely going to make it an interesting finish for Ohio State. There's no question. CJ Stroud's a great quarterback, but their defense has a little bit of flaws that got exposed on Saturday.
Yep, no doubt.
Well, there were other college football games with rivalry week in full extent, but there were also some teams that were off. And, now that there were a couple teams that are off, one of them was most notably Alabama. Do you think that certain schools actually might prefer to have a bye week earlier in the season compared to late, just because of, how it could throw you off? Or, just the simple fact of where the bye week is at in the season. You want to maybe have the off day out of the way, or the bye week out of the way earlier in the season. that way, you can go on that stretch run and get into a groove later on in the season.
I think it depends on how the season's going. Like if you're playing good football and bye week kind of comes in and kind of like hurt your progress, not hurt your progress, but kind of like slow your roll a little bit because you got a week off, then you got to come back and like reset. But it depends. Sometimes I prefer to have my bye week in the middle of the season. Just because you ain't playing, you have a bye week early in the season, you play like 4 games, and you got to play like 7 straight. But it's all a matter of how you take care of the bye week. You get back to working on fundamentals, watching film, correcting all the mistakes. Depends on how you handle it. I mean, Saban's a good coach. Saban's a great coach. I'm pretty sure he knows what to do and what not to do during the bye week.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be an interesting ride for Alabama coming out of this, just based off of who they still have to face and, ironically, who they're not going to be facing this year. But I also wanted to touch on another thing because it just came to mind, and that's that, the Big Ten released some news this week about, next year's schedule. And what do you know? Penn State starts Big Ten play on the road again. This time it's at Illinois. By the way, just a fun fact, I still cannot get that 9 overtime loss to Illinois at Beaver Stadium out of my brain. It's like permanently encarved. And when I seen that they were facing Illinois, like the PTSD just like kicked in. I'm just like, no. And looking at Illinois, I mean, they're not even a bad team this year. They're actually leading the Big Ten West. Last time I checked, they are 6-1. I do know that they did win yesterday, so they are probably 7-1 per se. But overall, it's going to be a great year. I do know how I start to see Penn State faces Michigan State the last game of the regular season. And, I think that could be both a good or a bad move. But essentially, coming out of a bye week, they're facing UMass Lowell or so. So that's going to be interesting. But, it's interesting also to see how spaced out the Ohio State game and the Michigan game are. Michigan comes in November. We go to Ohio State, I believe, Halloween weekend, so that's going to be interesting. But overall, they start the season at home against WVU. That's going to be a good one to go to for sure.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I'm not even thinking about next year right now. I'm just enjoying this year, to be honest with you.
Exactly. I mean, but it never hurts to look ahead towards next year. I look at it this way, Penn State's got to win out. That's ultimately what they have to do. And if you look at it, they have the ability to do that. So overall, it's just a matter of going out there, practicing and executing what you need to do on the road and, stuff. A fun fact, I don't know why the Ohio State game drew the big noon kickoff, and yet, the Hoosiers and Nittany Lions will be kicking off at 3:30 on ABC next Saturday. So, now I might get a chance to watch that, but even then, it's just some of these good games are better off being played in the mid-afternoon, not at 12. Sometimes I think that, certain crowds and certain atmospheres should be for certain games and certain teams and stuff. But, overall, looking forward to it. At least we stuck in there with Ohio State. It would have been great to finish what you started, but hey, it didn't work out that way. But World Series is tied up. Game 3 is tomorrow. This is going to be amazing and stuff. And it's going to be interesting to see what some free agents do in the offseason for Major League Baseball. I know there was already a report that Aaron Judge might get a lot of interest from the Dodgers. And, who knows? If there's one team probably willing to pay a steep price, it's the Dodgers. LaMarr knows all too much about the Dodgers and how they like to spend money. But it's hard to say, But we will look ahead to that and all next week. I do know that the NFL is starting today soon. Steelers versus Eagles in Philadelphia. I'm actually shocked that this game is during the regular season. They normally play each other in the preseason, but maybe things are starting to change, and that might be a good thing. But that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. For LaMarr Fields, I'm Tom Johnston, and we will see you on the next one.